I am Javed Nixon, President and CEO of Point Global Marketing, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Digital Housing Practice Labs. Point Global was started 10 years ago. A part of the process of starting Point Global, digital was in a very different state than it is now. We have a lot more practitioners that are working in digital, a lot more brands that are using digital. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. One of the things that we did as a company to help add to the learning in this space was created a marketing conference called Digital Housing. Out of Digital Housing, we have had some amazing speakers. For the last 8 years, I think everybody who is in the business community would have been on our panel or one of our guests. And as an offshoot of that, and looking at what has happened in the pandemic, one of the things that we talked about, certainly in Point Global, is how do we reinvent digital housing from not just becoming a conference that goes online to really being impactful, really impacting the persons that we started out trying to impact, which is emerging businesses in the Caribbean. And one of the models that we looked at were accelerators. Now, Point Global benefited from a lot of accelerators in the early stage. Our first office was at University of Technology in their incubator. I was a part of the Brands Center. I did the Young Leaders of the Americas program. I benefited from a number of accelerator programs. And I was really attracted to the model because I benefited. I saw how my business was able to scale and grow. And we really grappled with how could we use the accelerator model along with everything that we have learned from digital housing over the last 8 years to really provide a product that would benefit emerging businesses, startups, entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. And that's how Digital Housing Practice Labs came about. In a very succinct way as I can, it is an accelerator program geared towards Caribbean entrepreneurs that are working on their startups or are already in business but really want to learn digital skills. So it's heavily focused on digital, it's heavily focused on technology, it's heavily focused on the use of data and insight. All of the things that we do at Point Global on a everyday basis, whether that's around web, whether that's around mobile applications, to teach digital skills to people who are starting and growing businesses. I think first and foremost, what we want is to increase digital skills in the Caribbean. For me, when I think about Point Global, it goes back to why did Point Global start in the first place? Why do we exist? And we exist to really grow emerging businesses, because a driving value for me is that business is a force for good. A business directed to the right sector can really transform a society. And it's oftentimes innovation happens through business. And I think the best examples of that is when business partner with governments and other stakeholders to improve a situation for an entrepreneur or an industrial community. And that's what drives Point Global. And when I look at the Caribbean region, across the board, we lag behind the rest of the world in a number of respects when it comes down to how do we manage, manipulate, work with digital and technology generally. In many respects, we are not really even grappling with how fast technology is accelerating and the adoption of those technologies are accelerating. If you look at where things like facial recognition technology is, development of blockchain and how that has impacted things like cryptocurrency, the explosion of mobile and how that is impacting search and social and all of those things. A company like Point Global has to really not just focus on what we do on a daily basis of being an agency, but really seeing how do we get everybody that we're trying to work with to also understand the technology, because that results in a better space for us and it results in us being able to really impact emerging businesses, because when we pitch an idea, they understand the technologies behind those ideas and how they work. So it's really trying to impact the Caribbean, to grow digital skills across the Caribbean, Latin America as well, but certainly the English-speaking Caribbean, Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, and really work with entrepreneurs to move them up the value chain and to better give them skills, whether they're a single person business or have a full team that they're working with, just impacting how they do business and how they operate. When you look at digital these days, you are looking at a number of sectors. Almost every sector, regardless of where you are operating, is impacted by digital. First of all, one of the growing areas that people are focusing on is IoT, which is Internet of Things. And what is emerging is that literally everything that you can think of now has a microchip in it, that data can be collected, information can be processed. And we want persons to be aware of that, to understand from a business standpoint, how does that impact their business, and how are they able, are best positioned to protect against things like data breaches. Because one of the things that's happening now, specifically in Jamaica, is the passage of the Data Protection Act. And the Data Protection Act, a lot of businesses will be impacted by it, but they are not grappling with that. And Digital Housing Practice Lab is to really help smaller businesses grapple with things like data protection, how the use of video is impacting on businesses generally. A lot of businesses are feeling a lot of pressure to use video. It's and not just on social, but just generally to convey messaging and all of that. How mobile technology is being used, how Google is doing search. Google represents 90% of search. How is that impacting things like where are you using your Google listings, stuff like that. So we're going to really look across the board, not just at social, but at social, at search, at IoT, at data, specifically data privacy, at what platforms and tools should small businesses be using. All of those things will impact on how we teach, and we'll try and ensure that we do it in such a way that regardless of where these business persons are, they benefit from the information. There are two objectives. The first objective is to generally raise the level of knowledge around digital. Generally, this is whether you're a business person or you just want to increase information. So that component will still be there. The other objective is to accelerate business success, specifically how businesses are using digital. And we'll do that through a series of guided processes that will help these businesses build out a digital marketing tactical plan that is practical for them, and introduce them to tools that they can use to actually implement these plans once they're built out. Now, we will start with looking at their web properties. And not just their web properties, but maybe what they're doing on mobile. Is this company using IoT in any way? Are they using any kind of infrared tags, RID tags to track any kind of thing that they're using on digital? But we'll expand that to how are they doing search? How are they building out their websites? Are they really integrating what they're doing on social, and also thinking about what's happening on search as well? We'll help them to really look across the board on all of their properties and how they are using data and targeting specific customers online, and leading to a conversion and a sales process, which is what most businesses are trying to do with digital. And we'll spend a lot of time during these sessions helping these businesses be clear on their why, be clear on what their stories, how are they trying to convey value to customers, and basically all the tools that they're using to do that. So at the end of the program, a business will leave the program, one, having a strong digital tactical plan that is practical. And I use the word practical because that's an important element for us. We work with small businesses. These businesses in many cases have very, very limited resources. These are not businesses with massive budgets. Most of the clients that we work with across the Caribbean are spending somewhere in the region of $50,000 to $10,000 a year on their marketing. So it's not a big budget for a lot of these businesses. So over the last 10 years, we have an expertise in working with those businesses and ensuring that the needle is moved. Everybody wants to market a sexy brand. Our job is to market someone who isn't a fully formed entity yet, somebody who is trying to figure out where they are in the process. Yes, they might have a validated business, meaning that they have a way of making money, but these businesses are small businesses. They're under 5 years old in many cases. Even cases where they are not under 5 years old and they are 25 years old, there are still things that they need to figure out. And our job at Point Global has always been to kind of be a little bit more than just the consultant, and to hold these businesses and the hands of the persons who are running these businesses and really take them through the process. One of the things that internally, as a part of our communication, we say is we're a marketing engine for emerging businesses. And this will come out very strongly in how we structure digital housing practice labs. It would really be a process of building out a cohort of businesses that are working in a way that is practical. One of the things that I've always taken from a good friend of mine who is not here anymore is Andre Burnett. He has a saying that says, look, you have to start in the box first. And I think this is one of the critical things that I want to convey. Business, you have to start within the limitations of your budget, within the limitations of the people and the technical skills that you have. And then once you start there, you can expand and reinvent the box. But you have to start understanding that. And I think that's where we're going to be a little bit different from other accelerators, in that we're going to really start where these businesses are in their box of constraint, and then go from there to really give them something at the end of the process that they can say, hey, I have something that is practical, that is implementable, and that really can helps to grow and accelerate my business. There are a number of these programs that people would have seen online. There are a number of them in the Caribbean. And some of these programs are incubator-based programs, which are usually longer. Some of them are accelerator programs, some of them are hybrids. Some of them are training and coaching and mentoring programs. In our case, it's really an accelerator program. So depending on which of the programs, we have 2 tracks, but depending on which of the tracks you're going to be doing, an entrepreneur will be involved in the program for about 3 months. We will meet on a bi-weekly or weekly basis, dependent on the track that they're on. At those meetings, we'll have different facilitators. I'm one of the facilitators, but we'll have facilitators that are from outside of Point Global, as well as facilitators that are internal to our team that will come and address specific challenges that they might have. And each of those sessions, we'll look at things like how do digital businesses disrupt existing business models. So we'll have some case studies that are both Caribbean-centric case studies as well as international case studies. So the Ubers, the Airbnb, where are those in the Caribbean? Do they even exist in the Caribbean? What's happening in the creative space? We'll look at some of those. Then each session will have a work product that the entrepreneur or the individual that is doing the program will leave with. So at the end of the session, you would have completed a task that would redound to the benefit or would be able to be implemented in your business. Another thing is that having gone through these programs, we will issue them with certification to indicate the work that they would have done and the knowledge that they would have gained as a part of the process. It's important if you're doing digital to have computer. I think that's a core of what will be delivered. We have produced a manual that we will use to conduct the sessions. They will have access to that manual. It will cover things like how you do an empathy map, your business model canvas. How do you arrive at a positioning for a brand? So, which is one of the things that is super difficult for a lot of brands. You know, how do I come with a brand statement? So we'll have some toolkits that assist businesses with that, and they will be presented with that through a digital version, having been a part of the program. But really, they need access to a computer and an internet connection. The platform development track really is focused on understanding the different platforms that businesses can use to expand their digital marketing. We'll start with what does your website look like? What does your social media channels look like? But we'll also extend to things like search. We'll also focus on mobile. Are you using mobile at all? We'll touch on basically any platform that you can use to advance your marketing process. And we'll really take a route that is looking at some of the technical things that anybody can do, but it does take some amount of learning to do it well. We won't address it in a way that you need to be a developer necessarily to use, but we'll really give skills that a person, as long as they're comfortable with the technology, will be able to use to kind of advance the process. The second track really focuses on strategy and communication. So we'll look at your overall branding and marketing strategy. We'll spend a lot of time around communication and storytelling. We'll really delve into what are some of the things that are critical for branding, which a lot of businesses aren't even aware. So what are brand associations? What are brand elements? How do you achieve brand positioning? What does that even mean? How do you achieve a certain sound and feel for your brand? How do you attach certain emotive elements to your brand? And one of the things that we don't do well, again, in the Caribbean, is really that side, looking at what are brand elements. I think with those two elements, you will see the persons leaving with a really good understanding of not just what's going to be happening on the platform side, but also what's should be happening to understand and really figure out how do I reflect my brand in everything I do. Clearly, most of it will be virtual. So we'll use edtech platforms to really do most of it. But where possible, we will have, as certainly as COVID settles down, we'll have more networking engagement that will see persons being able to not only learn from what we are teaching at Digital Housing Practice Labs, but also collaborate with the persons who are a part of the program as well. The world is evolving in such a way where I think everybody needs to be, one, learning, two, teaching, and three, really just trying to focus on their own personal development. And to kind of steal a phrase, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur, you need to really be focusing on those skills. I think the reality is the more businesses like Point Global, whether those are agencies or teaching institutions, can really focus on how we pass information on, how we pass knowledge on. That's a place that the world is going to be in. I think spaces like health, education, and personal development is literally where the bar is at, where when it comes down to the next phase of the business and people process. Because the reality is, if you're doing something mundane, chances are a robot can do that. So the reality is learning, teaching, and matters of creativity and culture is where we need to be. And this process is geared towards that. For the foreseeable future, we see Practice Lab as our call to action, our way of implementing that, our way of giving back those values to the persons that we are trying to impact. And we think we're uniquely positioned to do it well because, one, we're on the industry side. We work with businesses every day to improve their marketing. And two, we have industry people who are grappling with it. So the teaching of it becomes a very practical endeavor.